Hey guys, we're going to put this HH109 on Lorenzo here. So we're going to take down some hair on top. The first thing I needed to be careful of is looking at the back here, trying to decide, do I have a system that'll go this far? And the very first thing I realized is if I tried to go this far, it's a little bit larger than the actual system is. So I'll use a little bit of his hair here and come up a little bit higher. And I've already made a template. I'm going with the plastic mold that comes in the kit. I put it on here and we figured out about where it would go from the front to the back. So I'm going to start taking some hair off the top. As most of you guys that have been in some of my classes know, I don't like to call it shaving the head. You know, it's a little tough on these guys when they're first deciding to do this. They don't want to lose the hair on top. They don't want to call it shaving. They don't want to be thinner. They want more hair, not less hair. So saying shaving sometimes is a little scary because it talks about losing hair. And I want to say preparing the top, taking the hair off the top. They figure it out, but they're still a little more at ease than when you say shaving. I'm using the template to figure out roughly where this line will go. And then we can take this off. We've got a clear line of where we're going to take hair off on the top of the head. I know a lot of you guys like to use balders. Many barbers like to use balders or foil shavers or whatever you want to call it in the industry. It's not necessary to take this hair off all the way down to where it's really thin baby skin feeling, because this hair grows back in just a few days anyway, so it doesn't need to be so fine and smooth like I said, like baby skin. It just needs to be pretty short, and I will go over it a few times. But while I'm doing this, I've got a lot of loose hair everywhere, and the main thing I want to do is use a little bit of alcohol. And what I've done is I've put 99% alcohol in this bottle here. So I'll spray it, get rid of the scalp oil, a little bit of sweat. I won't use a towel at first because I'm trying to get this alcohol and sweat to break down, and my fingers won't absorb the alcohol. Whereas a towel, if I put a towel on it right away and start wiping, see, it's dry immediately. So I don't get as much time for the alcohol to do its job. So here I've wrapped the towel around a couple of fingers and I kind of aggressively will scrub his head. So I'm doing a little bit more of an exfoliation as well as cleaning. And then let's just get rid of some of this extra hair and we'll clean a couple more times. We might even need to clipper just a little bit more. I like to let that alcohol do its work. I do find 99% alcohol works so much better than 71, 91. There's even 50% out there. The more the alcohol content, the faster it breaks down all of that adhesive. One thing I'm noticing that you might not be able to see on camera just yet is a little white flakes of skin. That's a positive sign to me. That means his scalp is getting really dry where I'm spraying alcohol. I'm trying to dry up all of that scalp oil and sweat. So yes, I'm not giving him the best look here for a second, but to me that says I'm getting it dry, but it's still a little shiny up here. So I'm going to go with alcohol a third time now. Break up that oil, sweat. On a skin system, all I have to do is clean the backside of it with alcohol. If I had a lace system, I would want to shampoo and clarify that hair system. You don't want to get it in their eyes either. I know we've got to be careful with not dripping down in these eyes. It burns a little, but only for a second, evaporates really quickly. But you want to clarify a lace system because the knots of the actual hair or on the back side of that system. If you'll notice on the skin system, it's not as porous as a lace system, so the knots aren't right there, whereas the water from the hair would wick to the knot and make this wet or oily, or maybe a silicone layer from the factory or some sort of conditioning layer. So here I just want to get it really, really dry and then let it air dry just a minute, maybe even run a blow dryer over the top for just a second. And the drier and cleaner it is, the better the hair system's going to stick when I start to put an adhesive on there. And then I'm going to take this hair system and then do the same thing. Now we're going to take the hair system and clean the backside of it a little bit with alcohol. Again, I like to put my fingers on there and kind of rub it in case there's anything that I'm trying to break down with the alcohol. Whereas if I touched it with a towel right away, it's going to absorb that alcohol and not clean. The other thing that's happening right now is when I'm rubbing this and cleaning this, I'm cleaning my fingers also, so I don't put any oil on the hair system or on his head. Now, I wrap like this and wipe pretty aggressively on a person's skin. I'm doing it to take off a layer of skin, the dead skin layers, the oil, whatever I need to break down. And it evaporates so quickly, I'm pretty safe there that just after a few seconds, I mean, if you wanted to blow dry it, just fan it a little bit, it'll evaporate and dry pretty quickly. Let's take this system and do a little bit of a dry fit. And I just want to kind of show you, if we didn't have a template at all, I want to show you a technique that we could use. We can kind of look at the tan on his forehead to see where he might have been wearing a system before. Many people will use a 4-finger technique. Not that that's the most professional technique, but something that we covered in other videos is that this distance here is the same as from here to here, which is also the same here. So a lot of people find it's about 4 fingers. Now I know everybody's fingers are different sizes, so if you find you have little bitty fingers and you do this, it might be 1 extra finger. I've been doing this for years, and I know if I bury my pinky into the little dent right there on their nose and I'll put 4 fingers together, that is most people's front hairline right there. One other thing I'll do is ask them to like wrinkle up your forehead a little bit, just kind of raise your eyebrows. There you go. When you raise your eyebrows, you can kind of see he almost had a little bit of a widow's peak. It kind of came down to a point. You don't have to give that back to them. Most people didn't like widow's peaks when they were kids, but if they did and you want to, it's fine also. But I can see that that hairline is right in this area. So I'm going to draw it right now as a little bit of a starting point, and then kind of see where that falls when I go to put this hair system on. I'll start with the front. I'm letting that tag hang down in the back, trying to find the center in the front. Go ahead and look down a little bit more. There you go. So as it starts to come here, let's see how it touches down. I'm going to go with a no template technique here for a second. I may revert back to the template, but as I'm putting this down, if all of these marks work correctly, this is what could happen. This might be my center mark for putting the system down, and this right here might be my first mark for where I would cut the size of this system that would match his head. If it's correct in the front, I'm going on a few guesses right now, but we'll double check that in a minute before we make any decisions that are definite and forever long term for this hair system. So as I'm rolling it down, it's not sliding around. I'm noticing this is a little off to the side, so that's my first clue that this whole system might be pivoted. But sometimes they don't put the tag in exactly the center in the back, though they usually do. It looked like that front was centered to me and looked really good, and I might be wasting my time putting these marks right now, but I think it was worth putting these marks around the edges, and I can just cut along these lines. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good here in the front. Let's see what that first mark, if it lines up where we put it. It does. That first mark was there. So we're going to bring more marks here down the center for where the system goes. And this was a little out in front of where I wanted the system to end up. And this would be that last last spot right here in the front where if this mark matches when I'm putting this system on, all of these others should match pretty good. But we'll also cut this system down to fit his head before we even put it on. So this is something I teach in some other videos also. I'm going to put adhesive on his head about a pencil's distance above the line I'm putting in right here. So this line that I'm putting in is just a reference line. I don't need all of this line, so let's get rid of that front line there. And then we'll do the same thing on this side. The hair system's going to get cut along this line here to go smaller, and then all of a sudden this is where the actual system is, but I'll put adhesive above this reference line. Sometimes this reference line is a little confusing to people, but it kind of come together as we start to put the system on. I'm going to remember my line's a little closer on this side and a little further on this side. It's okay because I'm going to put adhesive a little closer to the line here, a little further away on that side. One last little mark right there. And as long as I don't take any of these marks off, that should work really good on his head. So let's cut this out. Some people are cringing because I'm putting pins through a skin system. Some people would say never put pins through a skin system. It is totally just an opinion. You know what I'm thinking? Real world right now. I'm getting ready to cut this out. His head might be sweating or secreting oil. This is not. Most important thing right now, I'm confident that's going to fit. I've got all kind of thoughts going through my head, which is faster. I've got two different tools to choose from. Hairskeen sells this one. I've used this forever. I just want to show you the difference. I'll use a little bit of both. I loved this little horsehair bristled brush that you can get from almost any hardware, Home Depot, Harbor Freight, Lowe's. Get it spread a little bit so it doesn't start dripping, and then decide to start. I like to focus on the edges. Don't even think about the middle for a minute. I'm going to focus on the edge. I know I'm coming right down to right past there, right past that little mark. I start getting this whole front hairline done. I drew a little bit of a line where the actual system goes here, so I know that's the actual spot that the system comes down to. Picking up a little from up there, bringing it down to here, holding the hair down, and then I know that's my approximate distance from that very front line that I drew. That's pretty close to skin color. And I'm going to jump around to the other side and do the same thing. I focus on that front hairline first because I think it's the most important. So I know that this is the actual spot the hair system's going to go to. That line is a little further forward, and it's about, remember, about a pencil's distance. So it's about right here. But I can also paint just a little bit further forward than what I think, because it would be better to have a little too much adhesive than too little, because we can always clean off that front edge a little bit later. So look, guys, I got a little bit of hair in the adhesive. I'm going to show you a little trick on how to get that out. One thing I like about this tool, it's hollow there, so I can literally just kind of scoop it up, leave it in there. I throw these away, so it's not a big deal. That front is going to start to dry clear while we do the rest of this head. I'm going to put a little bit more. This is Great White by Walker Tape Company. I'm just going to try to move this around a little because I don't want it to drip where I'm not watching. And then I'm going to focus on this very edge, holding the hair down and painting up away from that edge. If you'll notice, this tool leaves a tiny bit more adhesive on the head than this tool. If I start to spread adhesive with this tool, see it lays it a little flatter. Don't know which is better. I guess it depends on what part of the country you're in, but you're not going to absorb any here, so you're not going to waste as much, but you do kind of have to be careful not to put too much, because this tool is not going to absorb it and forgive you a little bit. It's going to spread it all on the head. It gives a little more drag, you see. If you put the tool straight up and down, it'll pick up adhesive. If you lay it down, it lays too much. So you have to kind of get just the right bend in the tool to push it into every pore of the head. And I think that in the beginning, it's sometimes a little easier to use this tool because it's much more flexible and more forgiving. The hair skiing tool is a little more advanced and puts the adhesive on a little thinner and is a great tool, but definitely practice on a mannequin head first. So you notice I get a tiny bit in the hair right there. That is not going to matter at all. Just touched the hair on accident. That tiny bit, it'll shampoo out when he shampoos his hair later. It won't affect anything when we're putting it on. He won't even notice it, except that I said it. Other than that, he would have never known. That's one coat on the whole head. I'm kind of letting that dry while we move into cutting this system down. What I would recommend is we don't do this in front of the client. I would bring this into a back room, a lab, and not let the client see. A little bit different here in the studio, so he gets to see what's going on. I may never see him again now because I taught him how to do it. But the reality is it's kind of difficult. Years and years of practice to get this down right. It's difficult to do it on your own head, so they don't usually do it themselves. But maybe try to keep some of these parts of the process secret so that you can keep those clients. What I'm going to do is come in here and I'm going to cut a tiny bit larger than the lines I drew, knowing this is the front, this is the back. I've got center lines right up to the very front. I put a little tension on here. I'm parting the hair on the bottom side so that the hair stays on there and the hair stays on here. I don't want to dive deep like this and cut, because what I'll do is I'll end up giving him a bowl cut all the way around. But if I kind of put a little tension on the system, barely open the scissors, I can literally just push through and it parts the hair and cuts the system almost like a razor all the way around. Look, I'm right in the middle of the tag. It's a little harder to get through that tag because it's a little bit of a double layer of skin, but once I get through it, the rest of this will start to push easy again. And you see, if I have to veer on one side, I'm going a little bit on the bigger side, so some of those marks are staying on there, or most of those marks are. Again, that's not a big deal either. They could be alcoholed off right away if I wanted. That's the excess. I'll throw that off to the side for now. And we'll put a layer of adhesive on this system while we're here. Let's bring this on over. I'm always worried about this adhesive dripping. I might be working over here and that's dripping down that side. So I want to kind of get this touched everywhere so that it doesn't start to run anywhere. And then I'll start to focus on what I think are the most important parts, which is the front. Holding that hair down, similar to like I did on his head. So I think these pins are important myself. There's a little bit of sacrifice going on. Sure, that is a spot that water or adhesive could go through now. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe a little air needs to go through there. The membrane is slightly permeable, so it's sort of like real skin. It is porous, but just like our real skin, we can hold water in our hand for quite a while. Of course, some of it absorbs through, and that's why these are a lot cooler than you might think they would be on your head. But they do hold water for the most part, and these pins, to me, are the safety net of this hair system falling on the ground and this adhesive getting contaminated with the little hairs and things on the ground. So I like to kind of have it secured rather than falling on the ground. And I think it's worth. See the adhesive running? That's the part that if you're over here painting and not listening, not realizing that's happening, drips all through the hair. That's a little more difficult to get. So you want to just move that around as quick as possible and then start to work over here. I think the more this adhesive is stroked out like this, the better it holds. I think that when you look at a surface under a microscope, the surface is a lot rougher than it looks. You can kind of even hear it here. It's even making a little scratchy noise. There's a lot of hills and valleys in the surface, and I believe that the more I go left, right, forward, forward, backward, left, right, up and down, diagonal, I'm filling in more of the pores and getting more of this adhesive to touch more surface area of this system, as well as his skin. So that's one of the reasons I do a whole lot of brushing with the adhesive. I just don't feel like that one time is enough. I need it to come in contact with and here comes a hair coming out of the tool, so I'll pull it out before it ends up in the adhesive. I feel like I get a lot more contact with this adhesive. And the adhesive itself, I imagine, is made of little bitty molecules that are putting spaces and gaps between themselves. And so the more I'm moving this, the more chance that it's touching every little surface. We'll wait for that to dry clear. I'm going to put 2 coats here and 1 coat there. So this is clear while that was drying. That won't necessarily dry clear nearly as fast because it doesn't have the body heat. Sometimes I'll put a little blow dryer on it, a fan, a hood dryer up kind of high on medium. But here's the most important thing, getting this second coat here, waiting to see what happens there, and maybe we'll put a little dryer or something on there. And so I technically usually focus on the first half and then the back half separately. So I'm going into this back half now with a few more little drips or drops or lines of adhesive. I'll close up my adhesive so that it doesn't dry out on the inside and stays good for the next time. So most of these marks we'll be able to take off later because the system will be right behind that. Real world, I'm short. He's a little taller than I need. Chair doesn't go down anymore. Clients will go down though, watch. I'm just gonna push him down a little. Sometimes you don't even have to ask. You just push right here and they go down and it works out just perfectly so I can see the front really well. I'm gonna put my glasses on so that I actually find that front really well. What would be the front? It can get turned around. Make sure you were paying attention somehow. I didn't put any center lines in the back, so I know I did right here in the front. That's what I'm gonna have to match up. That front almost folded over on me. This adhesive will stick to adhesive really well, so be careful. I'm gonna see the hairs on the front here. Watch what I'll do. I'll use his face to brush those hairs out of the way. I'll come down a little bit further and use his mouth, his nose, his forehead. It's no fun for him, but it's just kind of quick, and I get that first mark to match up, and then the second, and then the third, and then the fourth, and I'm gonna stop right there for a second and show you. You can stop, you can breathe, you can move some things out the way. Let me do this just to make sure you can see really well. And what I'm doing is just trying to get these center lines to match these. And so as I go here, I can push his head down a little bit more if I need to. On the inside, I'm using these fingers to press the system down on that inside. So I get in here, I'm holding with my ring finger and my thumb way on the edges to keep it spread side to side. Don't stretch it, but keep it stretched enough. Not stretched, but just taut enough to keep the wrinkles out and towards me. So pulling sideways and towards me just a little bit, just so I don't get any wrinkles in the system, and making sure those lines. Look, I grabbed with the heels of my hand here and put him down again like that, and then make sure that this is all matching up around the edges. Lines are starting to match up. I usually would keep his head down. I realize for the camera you guys might need to see, so I've raised him up a little bit. I want that one last dot there to match that one. That's what I'm hoping for. As I'm going down, it looks like it's going to be a little to the right, so I'm going to slightly adjust to the left. Just the slightest bit. I'm pulling just a little bit here as I go to lay that down, you see, and then it made it line up just perfectly right on top of each other. So then as I let this, at this point it's almost autopilot. It'll just lay down if I let it, but I don't want it to flop and this stick to right here. I want that to end up where it should be. So I'm just kind of controlling it going down. And as it goes down, there's no stretching happening. It's just going right down to where it should be. And this is what Walker says is the most important part of adhesive sticking, is making the adhesive stick to the adhesive, giving it some pressure. No adhesive just sticks to the other just because it's laying there. It needs to be pushed on, not that this Doesn't feel really good too. Most clients kind of love this and say you can just keep going. A few tender-headed people don't like this at all, but either way it has to be done. You've got to push really firm and make the adhesive stick to the adhesive, the skin adhesive stick to the scalp adhesive, but as well you need the adhesive on the scalp to get pushed into all the little pores of his head also. So at this point, I think it's down pretty good. I tell you, there are some techniques where some stylists will put a towel on top of the head, twist it, ask the client to pull really hard, and they'll rub on top of the towel, and that's fine also, but I don't think it's necessary. As long as you're not putting big tangles in the hair like this, you're just kind of little bitty movements where you are, and that will help hold that adhesive down. Now we'll mist it with a water bottle, brush it back, comb it back, and kind of see what we've got before we start cutting. And yes, we'll put a cape on here in just a second. One of the little tricks that I'm doing when I'm brushing through his hair right now is I believe there's a push and a drag or a pull, and I'm dragging over to the top so that if any hairs get caught, it doesn't grab real hard and pull it up, and I don't dig up underneath that front edge and pull it up. I want to softly go over that front edge. So I'm not doing an aggressive comb right now, even though it looks like it because I'm going quickly. I'm doing this, and sometimes I'll turn in a little bit just to control a little bit more hair, but definitely not on that front hairline. And I don't want the adhesive too wet, so I'm really trying to just wet mid-strand to ends, trying not to saturate the system. Now the front hairline doesn't look perfect yet. Some of that hair is sticking to some of that extra adhesive I've got on the front, so I want to show you what happens with that. Some parts of it look really good and some parts of it are still bonded down to his scalp. So what I'll do is I'll literally pull those up. I can literally just pull the hair out of that extra adhesive, and then as we cut his hair, that'll just kind of wear away. But we also can remove it. Where it looks a little thick or clumpy is where 4 or 5 hairs are bonded together, and sometimes you just need a finer tooth comb to separate them and then pick them up and go back. Still a little clumpy right here, but I believe it'll separate as we, well, I know it will from experience, as we're cutting his hair. Sometimes it's better just to leave those few pieces stuck down, but if you need to get in there and push that base down, it's better to push the base down with the teeth of the comb, leaving the hair up like this, rather than bonding the hair down by pushing with your fingers. So before we go much further, let's go ahead and get rid of that little bit of line on the front. A little bit of alcohol on the front of a towel. I don't want to release this hair system from his head, so I really want to stay a far distance away from that front and just barely take that line off, maybe even not try too hard to take it off, because I don't want to take the hair system off. I want that hair system front edge to be bonded really good and not take any off with the adhesive or spray the front. See, I got a couple of dots right there. They're so close to skin color, I'm not even going to worry about them because I don't want to risk pulling that front up. Make sure I got that front down really good, and then we're going to go into a cut. So we're going to go into the cut, and this is one of my favorite parts of this whole thing, is that the head is rounded, obviously. You can see it's rounded from here to here, and what I like to do is remove a lot of bulk really quickly by cutting a mohawk section. I'll cut all of the hair right about where these teeth are, and I'm going to try to get the center of this head where I think the finished cut will be, maybe a little bit longer, because I'm going to texturize the ends to get them to blend really well. But by pulling up to here, it's going to leave the bangs a little longer to reach there. We can take care of them later and fine tune them. And the back of the hair system, which I can't even feel, it's crazy how good this fits. It's about right here. So by coming up to here and cutting at this length, removes all of that. But by cutting it at this length, lets it drop pretty long so I can blend it in later. And then the same thing from here to here. The head is curved. So by cutting here, these sides are brought all the way up to here, so when they drop down, they're long enough for me to fine tune later. So let's get rid of 90% of this hair with just a few quick cuts right down the center. So we'll bring this hair right in the center, pull all the hair from one side, all from the other. I'll turn them towards you before I do the cut so you can kind of see what I'm doing from the front angle. What matters most to me right now is how long would that front or that top center part be? And I think my finished look would be about 3 fingers from the head. So I start cutting off here. Do this from a couple different angles. So then I'll bring that same angle straight up through the front. See, it's right here. Now let's say I wanted to make that front a little bit longer. I could have done a few things. I could have angled up like that. I can drag it further back here. But I'm still kind of going straight across in the front. Maybe it went up just a tiny bit. I was trying to protect those bangs a tiny bit. And then the same thing in the back here. I'm bringing all of this hair system hair up. Feeling a little dry, so let's wet it just a little bit. Now, some people, when they're pulling the center section up, find that their fingers will go into that section and cause that side to circle around, whereas this side is going straight to it. It'll make the other side longer. So I've learned over some time that when I'm pulling this section up, to kind of hold it here and not have these fingers restricting the hair there, so that I do get a true mohawk section. I say some people because I mean I did that for years and kept wondering why one side was longer than the other, and I had to realize my fingers were deep into that section, and then I just came from the other side and did it again to take away that long hair. But just be aware of that. And now what I like to do next is I always kind of like to go step by step. You notice I'm just kind of misting the outside edges. That's why it keeps drying quickly, because I'm not wetting it all the way down. Now I'm going to focus on pie sections and get my bangs roughly where I'd like to get them. But I have another quick bulk removing technique. What I'm going to do is right in front of where he has hair on the side, right in front of that, pull all of this hair to that section and all of this hair to that same section, and cut the bangs about like I think I would like those bangs to be. And what that does is it preserves all of the sides, because I pulled them so far and over directed them that it gives enough length on the side that it goes from this length to longer, so that I can start to blend in that side. And then same thing in the front here. What do I want? I want about this length bang. So I just kind of bring it around in pie-shaped sections, and I'll match right into what I just did on that side. So we'll do the same thing on this side. We'll pull all the hair from the front and the back to the section right here on the skin, not in the hair. And if you're a little nervous about doing a big section like this, just do it a little longer than you think you need. Just pull it out long like this. And if you have to go back and cut a little more, it's fine, but at least you get rid of most of that hair. So we've still left that center just a tiny bit long, so he can still do any kind of styling off to one side, a little pompadour that way, this way, through the center, left part, right part. It all works right now. The thing that's not working just right now are these sides, right? We've got to all the way around kind of touch that up. So I want to look at this and just see if I were to, let's do it where you can see a little better. If I were to pull out just that side section, you can see his hair is here, and then this goes longer. I want to keep this longer and get it to match more with texturizing shears than anything else. So I'm just going to remove a little bit of bulk through this section, knowing that still at the end here, I'm still about an inch This is his hair to here, and this is the system, more like 2 inches longer right there. I would rather be a little too long at first and go back and cut more if I need to. So let's do the same thing on this side. Just a little bit out of this whole right part section because it's much longer. Now, maybe a guy, a little older guy, would have had an older fashioned style where it's a little more layered on the side, a little more feathered, whatever you want to call it, going into something long in the back. Then all of this long hair would have been needed. But he and I talked a little bit about going shorter on his sides, but leaving the hair system long enough to blend longer in between haircuts. So he's trying to get some versatility here, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that with the texturizing shears here in a minute. What I like about texturizing shears is it takes the hair and puts it in so many different lengths that it can blend pretty well today and again in a few weeks as the hair starts to grow out. Because this hair is not going to grow, right? His hair is going to continue to grow, and we need to see what it's going to do. So what I'd like to do is get the hair system hair out of the way for just a minute and take his hair and go kind of short with it, because that's kind of what he wanted. And you'd be surprised at how just a few hits with the texturizing shears will start to really thin that out. Now we'll come back and clipper a good line here, but what I want to do is take just a really thin section of the hair system hair, and I'll go to halfway around here. And I didn't have to do his hair first. I could have did it with the system in a few seconds. Got him a little high here. I'm going to take this hair system hair and at about a 45-degree angle, cut some of the hairs shorter, some medium, some longer as I come around. And it's a very thin section, so it's very forgiving. You can really mess this section up and you've got all his hair above it to fix your mistakes. But the thing that you want to think about here is you want this to be so soft and feather edged no matter what you do above it, that this hair will blend with his hair. Still a little long there, but see the rest of this is starting to kind of disappear and blend right in. I haven't got his hair in the back yet, so just wanted to kind of see the difference if I had done it here but not there. But it looks like I really need to texturize his hair also in the back as well as the side, and then when we line him up with the clippers, it'll make all the difference. Now, we can pull out another couple of sections to start really blending that, and we'll almost be done with the sides. The top is pretty close to done. It needs a little texturizing to look a little more real through those edges, but this side is already starting to blend. Almost no matter how long I leave it, it will blend, but I think we need to do a little bit more fine tuning here by picking this up, and again, 45-degree angle, mid-strand to ends. Makes it a really versatile haircut. He can do so many things with it. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Maybe you get a different angle, seeing what's going on from the back. We'll get rid of the bangs completely. This time, I'm going to do it a little bit backwards. I'm going to take this little thin section. I wanted it to be a little easier to see by getting rid of the hair underneath first, but usually what I would do is just comb the whole system over. Then you kind of tell where the long hair is and the short hair and bring out just a thin section here. And while you're thinning that thin section, you also are getting a little bit of the client's hair, so it's okay. So what I'll do here is I want to thin this thin section a lot. It can be in front of the comb, behind the comb, whichever works best for you. all the way till we get into here. Now, yes, I'm picking up a little bit of his hair also, which is fine. But that's the point where I don't want to keep cutting his hair with all of this down. So what I might do is first go ahead and bring his hair down really short. And you know what? It's not necessarily short. What I'm looking at is his hair per square inch on his head is a little on the low density side. It's the reason why he's here. So if I cut his hair really, really short to give him more of that fade look, it shows too much scalp. Whereas if I just shorten some of the hairs, it'll make some hairs short, some hairs long, and he'll get more of a fade look, and not a complete fade. I know some of you guys are saying that's not a fade, but more of a fade look with some longer hairs in there so that he can cover the scalp more. And then we'll bring a little bit more hair down all the way around. Doesn't have to be a perfectly neat straight section. It's actually a little bit better if it's a little zigzag and jagged. So again, 45-degree angle, mid-strand to end. That first section I went a little closer to the base of the hair, closer to the root of where it grows out. But now I'm trying to be more mid-strand to end because I don't want any of those short hairs that are going to make it stand up more than I like. So the thing I'm thinking of now is I kind of got this whole side texturized enough, but not much in the bang area. It's looking a little blunt there and through the top and maybe a little off the center. So what I want to do now is in this top section is texturize not mid-strand, but a little closer to 3/4 strand and end. And I'm going to do it all scissor over comb, and not do it as much as I do in the bang, because I've done it before and it'll make those bangs look really, really wispy and soft, and the opposite of what he came in here for. So I'm gonna start right in the front and just do the very edges of the front to make it look a little more real without working on those bangs too much. I'd rather go back and do a little bit more, but I always think of the bangs separate than everything else, because that's where I've made, and most stylists have made, the majority of their mistakes. Cutting bangs too short, making them too thin, too much texture. So then through this top section, I can just kind of comb right back through where I was there, and I'm trying to get mid-strand to end, because every hair on the head, when your hair is really growing, grows at different rates. So all of these hairs are different lengths, and it looks a lot more real if I start to texturize, which is cutting some hair short, some medium, and just make these ends all different lengths so that it just looks more natural, more like real growing hair. Did it right through the center, and I'm going to do a little off to the side now, a little bit of a part section on both sides. I try to hardly ever cut straight across. I don't want any straight lines, even with a texturizing shear on a client's head. I want more of a bunch of different irregularities in the haircut. Some organized chaos here. And then I'm going to do one more little trick on the very front hairline that I think is very underused, and that is to make that front near his scalp look a little bit more real. So we've got a lot of mist going on, a lot of water, and that front is still down really well. People are surprised at how well that front stays down, because I'm not really soaking it right down to the scalp like it might look like. It's more that mid-strand end, and that's why it keeps drying out on me so quickly. That front hairline, it looks pretty good. It looks pretty real. Yes, we've got some hairs on his face, got a lot of hair all over this cape. But that very, very front, right near his, and I'll do one side so you can kind of see the difference from one side to the other. I think it'll be easier if I'm standing over here when I do it. Taking a texturizing shear and taking out just some hairs in here really short to blur that line so that this doesn't look as straight. Some people would go with scissors and cut little V's out of the actual hair system to make it look more jagged, that's a lot harder to put back on in a month or 2 or 3 when he comes back. Never 2 or 3. When he comes back in 3 to 6 weeks to have this system put back on, it's really hard to recreate a crooked or a zigzag hairline. But when the hairline's straight, it just looks a little blurred because I cut some hairs. Watch this. I'm going in just about a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch above here, and I can pull it down so I know what section I did, but you can't really see what happened when I do that until I put it back up. But I'll just go in and just take out like this. Sorry about that. Or you can just cut and open and cut and open. Just cut all in this area, a few different. I'm just going in 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 teeth deep. I'll comb that hair out so you can see it here in a second. And I'll just do that half so you can kind of see the difference. Well, you can see the hair that's coming out. So a little bit of hair comes out, and it's just some little bitty short hairs in this area that just blur that line a little bit. Most people have little baby hairs around the front, so we call them baby hairs. And can you see the difference there? It looks so much more real than this side. I don't know if we can kind of zoom in on that, but what I'll do is I'll try to clean up a little bit of this hair on his face, and we'll kind of look at each side to kind of see the difference. And I'm okay with some of you guys saying, I love it, and some of you guys saying, I hate it. He's not always going to wear his hair like this, but I just kind of want you to see what's going on with that front hairline, how much more real to me that looks because it's a little more blurred compared to this side. A little more solid. So now we're going to do it to the other side also. What we did was we softened that side. I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to show you how I would normally do it. I would go in there and pull that out so I can kind of see where I've been and I know where to not do it again. The only downside to that is I can't go and do it a second time. So if I leave it up there, I can cut and let go and do a few different, like I'm trying to do 1 tooth now, but then I might go in and go a little higher and do 2 of the little teeth at the end of here to give all those different lengths. It doesn't change much till you take the long hair that you cut out. And it's just so few hairs, but it makes such a difference on that front hairline. So some of the things that really make the biggest difference is the cleaning up around the edges. And some of the tricks I have that I'll just kind of pass on to. You see this one long hair right here that's coming out of his head. It's crossing what I would call the line, crossing the line. The line to me is the line of his facial shape and the hair on his facial shape right there. So if I were to comb this down, this is where the line should be, right? So if I just comb the hair towards that and get rid of any hair, doesn't matter which way I hold the clippers, but getting rid of any hair that crosses the line, even in this area. I'm not going to go too deep into the beard, but my hands might get in your way. So I just wanted to kind of explain what I'm doing. You see the line disappears when I go forward, but if I come down, I see where the line is. I come forward to that line. I can keep the comb on there and get rid of the hair in front of that line. It automatically cleans that area up. And then the same thing going back. We know there's not supposed to be any hair between his ear and where the beard starts there. So if I bring all of this hair back like this and just get rid of it right in here, doesn't matter which angle my comb's at. It's easier for some people to kind of go up through it like this. But as we get rid of this hair, everything starts to look a little neater, and the blend of the two going together works out better. I'll pull his ear down and kind of go around this area. And here's a little habit of mine. It's hard to tell if the hair, after you're cutting hair, is all laying all over the ear. Is it growing in his ear or not? So I just kind of pass the clipper in this area. Just take off any hairs that might. Sometimes you get that one random hair that's sticking out. So I just kind of go over the ears like this just to make sure that I've gotten every hair that possibly would be growing around or out of the ear. And obviously, the older your clients get, the more hairs they do have growing out of their ears. And then we're going to just make up a line here that's kind of close to what it looks like he's already got going on. Marry that all together. We know where we needed to be here. I had a good idea where I needed to be here. And so then I just kind of pull these two together. Not sure if I'm going to go straight across at the bottom and square it off, or I'm going to round it or go more to a point, but I knew I needed at least that taken off, so I'll do the same thing on the other side. That water is mostly just to hold this hair out of the way. Just taking what looks like it should be somewhere around here, right? Is it the same as the other side? I find if I put a finger there, I can kind of tell where it should be if I grab both sides at the same time. Now what should we do with this back? I'm going to start off with squaring it off as long as I possibly can. When I look through there, it almost looks like there's a line here through there. So as much as I'd like to go as low as this side, it won't be as thick as I like there. So I'll go up to the highest point of what looks thin there and kind of bring it straight around. Make sure his head's really straight. Bring his shoulders back. Don't have him look down too much. Barely taking that corner off just because it's a trend right now. I know we go through trends where sometimes a little more sharp cornered edge, sometimes going all the way to a complete point, shaving it down to the skin. I'm really trying to go basic right now, something that'll work for more people more often, but you feel free to put your signature on it. Anything that crosses that line, if I pull it down like that, can just be cut off to make it blend just a little bit better. Now, this is where I like to go in and say, now we can tell if we should have gone a little shorter in this area. And if we want to kind of fade it down just a little bit closer to those edges, right in those bottom edges, if we want to just take out a little bit more hair. I can get him to have a little bit more of a trendy look where it's going down to a lot less, just right in those edges, and be a full hair here. No matter what he wants to do, he can do it curly, he can do it more straight, he can part it, he can really be a lot neater, whatever he wants to do, but it goes down to nothing here. And this is where the focus is, more of how nice and neat it looks around the edges instead of where it's supposed to blend. So I can do that about a comb's width all the way around here. So I'm going to come in this area here and do the same thing. So I like to do a lot of my work with thinning shears because it's a slower, more safe process. I just keep on chopping till it looks like I want it to look without having to get it right at that very first cut. If you decide to go with clippers at a certain length or scissors and you went a little too short, it's too late, right? It's just a one-time thing, one and done, good or bad. With texturizing shears, it's a lot more forgiving. So I can slowly take that shorter and shorter. I could do it down in here too if I wanted to blend his beard more so he can have a thinner look here and blend into a thicker and longer here, blend into thicker and longer up here. I think that's looking pretty good right around there. So I'll do the same thing over here. So you see how wide that blade is. I can literally stick that against the head, and it's not going to cut against the head. It's going to cut this distance away from the head. So as I can go right up in here and cut like this and still not make lines. It's almost the same as doing it like this. It's just going right through there and cutting it. And if you turned it over, this distance would be even further, so you'd even be more safe. Now he said in the beginning he wanted a bit more of a fade, and I said, oh, no, I don't do fades. Let's get away from that idea. So what I did was I managed his expectations. I said, no, we're gonna go a little longer. I'm not really good at fades. And he's like, well, just do something that blends really good. But the truth is I get in here and I start to work and I'm thinking, you know what? We can do a slight bit of a fade right around those edges. And so now when he sees it, I've lowered his expectations, but delivered a little bit more than he expects, so he'll be happy now. If I said, sure, I can do a fade, and like, oh my God, I'm nervous the whole time, I took the pressure off of me by saying, no, can't do a fade, forget it. I'm just not even gonna try. And he's like, okay, so he doesn't expect it now. Now that I deliver it, he'll be a little happier because it is gonna blend a little bit more from a fade-ish kind of thing down in the very bottom edge into his little bit fuller beard. And I'm gonna let him style his hair. I'm gonna kind of stop there. So what do you think?
It's good.
When you look at that hairline, isn't that crazy?
Yeah. It's good. Great.
So that's it, guys. Very basic haircut. I did go a little closer here than your basic haircut. But from there, you can take it as short or as long or as blended as you like. I just thought it'd be really kind of neat to see some of the basic principles that I do in a haircut. I go through those steps every single time. I can recap. I do a mohawk strip here, and then I kind of do that pie section across the front to get the bangs right. And then I'll take out just a little bit on each side, kind of pie sectioning around to that back. And then work on the sides with texturizing shears. And when I say work on the sides with texturizing shears, I mean the system hair as well as his hair to blend the two together. We did go a little bit longer. It's very common that I'll go a little bit longer at first. They're gonna say it's too much, it's too thick, it's too long, because they're not used to having hair. He's had hair before, so he's loving a little bit of length, whereas the very first time, they are often saying too much hair, but I highly encourage them to leave a little bit more hair, come back in a day or two to cut more. So that's it, guys. That little bit of, I just love that little bit of front hairline. You like this hair?
Yeah.
He loves it. That's a wrap. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.